Illinois is facing a serious homelessness crisis. And it isn't just a big city issue like in LA or New York. It's real here at home, from Chicago's crowded streets to the quiet small towns across the prairie. Rents are soaring, wages aren't keeping pace, and COVID's long shadow still lingers, like a guest who won't leave. Governor J.B. Pritzker has called it a tough problem to solve and a top priority. So what's going wrong in Illinois? Why are so many people stuck without a place to live? And who is actually doing something about it? In this video, we'll dig deeper and break it down. What's driving the crisis, what help is working, and where we go from here.
I would think maybe like housing or like somewhere to live. Like if somebody let me stay on their couch and get a job, you know, that would help out a lot. It's just trying to get a job, sleeping on the sidewalk kind of hard, you know. But if I had like somewhere to sleep, take a bath, come home to every night, I could hold a job. But being out here on the streets, you know, it's hard to, I guess I could do it, you know, but that would help. Having somewhere to stay.
Illinois, the prairie state, has always felt like home. Chicago's skyline pulses with big dreams, while the small towns scattered across the plains carry the warmth of Midwestern life. With more than 12 million residents, Illinois thrives on hard work, whether it's tech startups in the city or farmers tending the soil. Yet beneath this energy lies a quiet and painful truth. Too many families, from city blocks to rural backroads, are being crushed by poverty. Their paychecks no match for the soaring cost of living. This pressure has fueled a homelessness crisis that can't be ignored. Chicago has been hit the hardest, but smaller towns are also feeling the strain. In 2024, more than 25,000 people were counted as homeless in Illinois on a single night. Nearly 19,000 of them in Chicago alone. It's a heartbreaking number for a state built on community and resilience. HUD, 2024. This isn't the loud, chaotic scene you might picture from some West Coast cities, but it's just as raw. Homelessness in America often hides in plain sight, and in Illinois it takes quieter forms. Families packed into overcrowded shelters, people sleeping overnight in airport terminals, or relatives doubling up in cramped apartments just to get by. The economy leans heavily on low-wage jobs, retail clerks, factory workers, service employees, folks who are often just one bad day away from losing everything. Shelters are already stretched to the breaking point, and in rural counties like Livingston, they're almost non-existent. WGLT 2024. And that one night count of 25,000 doesn't tell the whole story. Thousands more are scattered in motels, curled up in cars, or sleeping rough where nobody's counting, holding on by the thinnest thread. Across the prairie state, people are slipping through the cracks. So what's really driving this hidden wave of homelessness? Let's be honest. Finding a place to live in Illinois, especially in Chicago, has become a grueling fight for anyone living paycheck to paycheck. Rents keep climbing sky high, while wages barely move, leaving working families gasping for air. The state faces a massive shortage of affordable housing, with hundreds of thousands of units missing from the market. Housing Forward 2024. In Chicago, a simple one-bedroom can cost more than $1,500 a month, yet many workers earn less than $20 an hour. Do the math, it doesn't add up. One unexpected bill, like a car repair or a medical visit, and you're suddenly on the brink of losing your home. But it's not just rising rents. Big investors and landlords are buying up properties, flipping them into high-end condos or short-term rentals for tourists, leaving fewer units for everyday people. Programs like Section 8 are supposed to be a safety net, but the wait lists stretch on for years, buried in red tape. This is how homelessness in America takes root, when housing is treated as a luxury instead of a basic human need. In Illinois, baristas, drivers, and factory workers are putting in long hours, pouring everything into their jobs, yet still can't secure stable housing. The state's economy might be booming on paper, but it's leaving far too many people behind. This housing crunch isn't just Chicago's problem, it's hitting towns like Springfield, Peoria, and beyond. Low-income families across Illinois face impossible choices: rent or groceries, pay the electric bill, or fix the car. When housing eats up more than half your paycheck, there's no room left for life's curveballs. Rural areas are suffering too, with rental options scarce and often priced well beyond what locals can afford. Illinois' housing market has become a pressure cooker, and more people are reaching their breaking point. The safety nets meant to help are stretched thin. Section 8 vouchers, designed to ease rent burdens, are so backed up that many give up hope before ever getting one. Other supports, like programs under Illinois' Home Illinois Plan, are spread too thin to keep up with demandillinois.gov 2024. Meanwhile, the private market keeps chasing profits, with developers pouring money into luxury projects instead of modest, affordable apartments. It's a vicious cycle. Fewer affordable homes create cutthroat competition, driving rents even higher. For the average worker, it feels like chasing a finish line that keeps moving farther away. But this isn't just about money, it's about dignity. A home is the anchor of stability, the place where people build their lives. When it's out of reach, hope itself starts to erode. Illinois, with its strong community spirit and Midwestern grit, now stands at a crossroads. Homelessness in America grows when housing is treated as a privilege instead of a right. And here in Illinois, too many are already slipping through the cracks. The question is, what else is fueling this crisis beyond the housing trap? Poverty weighs heavy across Illinois, pushing too many people dangerously close to homelessness. In Chicago, where the wealth gap stretches like a canyon, and in quieter towns like Peoria or Springfield, folks are working hard every day, yet still falling short. The state's economy leans heavily on low-wage jobs, retail clerks, fast food workers, seasonal farmhands that can barely cover rent, if at all. When the cost of everything keeps climbing but paychecks stay flat, it only takes a skip shift, a medical bill, or a car repair to send a family spiraling into crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic only deepened the strain. In 2020, jobs in bars, hotels, and shops vanished almost overnight, leaving workers stranded without a safety net. While some of those jobs have returned, the damage lingers, Illinois Department of Employment Security, 2023. Today, many people are pulling double shifts or juggling 2 or 3 jobs, yet still can't keep up with rising bills. That's the raw truth for too many across the Prairie State. Homelessness in America isn't just about being jobless. It's about pouring your energy into work that still doesn't keep the lights on or the landlord at bay. When rent swallows most of your paycheck, there's nothing left to handle life's blows. This isn't just Chicago's struggle. It's happening all across Illinois. In small towns, where a single factory or farm might be the main employer, jobs can vanish overnight. Seasonal work sounds good until the season ends, leaving families with a pile of bills and no income to cover them. Even in the city, where opportunity seems endless, low-wage workers are trapped in a cycle of barely scraping by, with no chance to save for a stable future. The state's economic divide, where the wealthy climb higher while others fight to stay afloat, only makes survival tougher. Illinois was built on hard work, but when hard work no longer guarantees a home, something is deeply broken. What's missing is a safety net strong enough to catch people before they fall. Programs like emergency rent relief or job training could make the difference, but they're either underfunded or tangled in red tape. Without real support, families live one missed paycheck away from disaster. The numbers don't lie. Illinois' poverty rate in both urban centers and rural counties outpaces the national average, and low-wage jobs dominate the market. U.S. Census Bureau, 2023. Homelessness in America thrives where systems fail working people, and Illinois is squarely in that trap. The state has grit and resilience, but grit alone doesn't pay the rent. What does it mean for Illinois' future when even its hardest workers can't keep their heads above water? In Illinois, mental health struggles and addiction act like invisible chains, pulling countless people deeper into homelessness and making escape feel almost impossible. Across the state, roughly 30–40% of the homeless population battles conditions like anxiety, PTSD, or drug and alcohol dependency. HUD, 2023. But getting help in a state this large and diverse, that's a fight in itself. In Chicago, organizations like Thresholds work tirelessly to provide care, but they're overwhelmed. Wait lists can stretch for months. And in rural areas like McLean County, the outlook is even grimmer, where mental health services are nearly non-existent. WGLT, 2024. When you're wrestling with depression or addiction, holding down a job or scraping together rent can feel like scaling a mountain without gear. Lose that job, and rent is the next to go, forcing you onto the streets where stress and substance use feed each other in a vicious cycle. It's relentless, and Illinois doesn't yet have the resources to break it. Many people openly say they want help, to get clean, to find stability, but the starting line feels miles away. Chicago Coalition to End Homelessness, 2024. Homelessness in America always takes on sharper edges when mental health and addiction collide, and Illinois is no exception. The gaps are glaring: too few clinics, not enough counselors, and far too little funding to make real progress. The question that hangs heavy: what's holding back the support that could finally break this cycle and give people a real shot at recovery? In Illinois, homelessness doesn't strike evenly. It falls hardest on those already burdened by history. Black Americans make up just 14% of the state's population, yet account for more than half of Chicago's homeless. WTTW, 2023. That's no coincidence. It's the long shadow of redlining, discriminatory lending, and a system that kept communities of color locked out of opportunity for generations. Latino families also feel the squeeze, living with higher poverty rates where one job loss or rent hike can be enough to push them over the edge. In a state as diverse as Illinois, this crisis exposes inequities that can't be ignored. Support for these communities is stretched painfully thin in Chicago. Culturally specific programs are scarce. For Black families or Latino immigrants navigating language barriers, seeking help often feels like trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. Real solutions mean facing up to the past, acknowledging decades of housing discrimination, job barriers, and systemic inequities that still decide who suffers most today. Homelessness in America thrives on these fractures, and Illinois is no exception. What's needed is a safety net strong enough to catch everyone, not just the fortunate few. The question remains: can Illinois confront a crisis so deeply rooted in its own history? Illinois stretches from Chicago's bustling streets to the quiet fields of its rural heartland. But that size is both a gift and a curse when it comes to homelessness. In Chicago, shelters like Pacific Garden Mission are lifelines, yet they're pushed to the brink, often forced to turn people away when every bed is filled. The city is working to add thousands of new shelter spaces, but against the scale of the crisis, it's barely a drop in the bucket. Chicago Tribune, 2024. Out in rural counties like Livingston or Stark, shelters hardly exist at all, leaving people to sleep in cars, abandoned houses, or public parks, just to make it through the night. WGLT, 2024. Frustration ripples online as locals point out that too many have nowhere safe to go. But the shortage isn't just about beds. The deeper problem is the lack of wraparound services, job training, legal help, or mental health care that could actually lift people out of the cycle. While some coastal cities have stronger networks, Illinois' rural regions depend on small, underfunded nonprofits or services located hours away. Even in Chicago, the coordinated entry system, designed to connect people to housing, is swamped and overwhelmed by demands Chicago Coalition to End Homelessness, 2024. Homelessness in America festers when the safety net is this thin, and Illinois is no exception. With gaps this wide, how can the state keep its most vulnerable residents from slipping through? COVID-19 didn't create homelessness in Illinois, but it turned a simmering crisis into a raging fire. When the pandemic hit in 2020, businesses across the state, restaurants, shops, factories shut their doors, and low-wage workers bore the brunt as jobs disappeared overnight. Illinois Department of Employment Security, 2023. Eviction bans offered temporary protection, but once they lifted in 2021, thousands of families couldn't catch up on back rent. Many ended up crowding into shelters or slipping onto the streets, facing a harsher reality than before. Chicago Coalition to End Homelessness, 2024. For those already homeless, the pandemic was devastating. No safe place to quarantine, little access to testing, and mounting mental health struggles that pushed some deeper into addiction. Shelters, already stretched thin, were forced to cut beds to comply with distancing rules, leaving more people to sleep in alleys, parks, or rural backroads. Federal relief programs, like emergency rental aid, provided brief relief but dried up quickly, especially in downstate counties where resources were scarce to begin with. Housing Action Illinois, 2024. The pandemic exposed Illinois' deep vulnerabilities, soaring housing costs, underfunded services, and fragile safety nets. Homelessness in America was supercharged by COVID, and Illinois is no exception. The scars are still fresh, and the crisis is far from over. The pressing question now is, how does a state heal when the wounds keep reopening? Here's the truth. Homelessness in Illinois isn't just numbers on a chart or political talking points. It's a test of what we stand for as a state. The 25,000 plus people without a home aren't strangers. They're Illinoisans, the same folks who cheer at Bears games or gather at county fairs. This state has the heart and grit to turn things around. Look at the Home Illinois Plan, now investing millions into housing and support services, illinois.gov, 2024. Or take Houston, where coordinated housing strategies cut homelessness by more than 60% HUD, 2022. If Illinois commits, that success can be ours too. But it's not just about money, though funding more affordable housing and mental health programs would be a game changer. It's about recognizing the homeless as our neighbors, not as problems to be swept aside. Groups like the Chicago Coalition to End Homelessness are fighting every day, but they can't do it alone. They need residents, leaders, and communities to step up, whether through volunteering, pushing for smarter policies, or simply caring enough to act. Homelessness in America grows when we look away. Illinois has a chance to lead by example, showing the nation what's possible with real investment, compassion, and determination. Build homes, expand services, treat every person with dignity. That's how we create change. The question is, will Illinois seize the moment and lead the way to a future where everyone has a place to call home? Illinois' homelessness crisis hits like a gut punch. More than 25,000 people were without a home in 2024. This is a state rich in both resources and spirit, yet it's wrestling with tough realities. Rents through the roof, deep-rooted poverty, scarce mental health care, racial inequities that cut deep, and shelters that simply can't keep up. The fallout from COVID-19 only poured salt in the wound, leaving scars that haven't healed. These aren't just numbers. They're a wake-up call for a state that prides itself on community. Leaders like Christine Haley and groups such as Housing Forward are working tirelessly, but the housing shortage and overwhelmed services demand far bolder action. Illinois.gov, 2024. Fixing this means more than talk. It requires real investment in affordable housing, expanded mental health care, and jobs that actually pay enough to live on. But it isn't just about money, it's about willpower. It's about everyday people and policymakers alike deciding to care enough to act. Imagine a Chicago where Millennium Park hums with families enjoying the day instead of people struggling to survive. Or small towns where shelters stand ready to help, not turn folks away. That vision isn't a fantasy, it's within reach if we choose it. Homelessness in America grows when we stop caring. Illinois has the chance to flip that script. The question is, will this state rise to the challenge and show what heart and grit can do for the people who need it most?